or hello for the very first time if you are listening in to your very first episode of Inspired Coach. I am absolutely delighted and excited to introduce to you our guest today, Katherine Mackenzie-Smith. Katherine is currently our joint winner of the International Coach of the Year for the Beautiful You Coaching Academy Awards. She has also been a member of our community for a very long time as somebody who studied with us way back when, 9 years ago now, in the very first Beautiful You life coaching course pilot. So she is an OG, someone who has been with us from the beginning. And I'm incredibly excited. I know I've mentioned that word before, but I really am to bring you this interview with Katherine today about the topic of coaching as an introvert. So let me tell you a little bit more about this amazing human being and coach. Katherine Mackenzie-Smith is an award-winning business coach and strategist for introverts and highly sensitive souls, an energy and soul practitioner and host of the Emerge and Expand podcast. Through her one-on-one mentoring, group programs and business memberships, Katherine supports gentle leaders to create successful, sustainable businesses through their own innate wisdom and strengths. This is a really important topic. Coaching as an introvert, being an introverted coach, and even thinking about coaching introverted clients for us to talk about on Inspired Coach. Because, as Katherine is about to share with all of you, 50% of the people in the world identify as an introvert. That is a lot of people. And if it's one thing from my perspective that I really want you to know, and this is driven by the number of people who I speak to who are thinking about becoming a coach and or are just beginning their training or are training to become a coach, that is fears and concerns that they have that their introverted nature means they're not going to make a good coach, that they're somehow or another going to be too quiet or not bold enough, or that people won't understand or feel their energy and their sensitivity, and that they'll struggle to manage that. This is the thing that I want everyone to know as somebody that has now trained so many coaches from all over the world. First of all, introverted folks make incredible coaches, incredible, and that clients in all their diversity and different needs that they have need different types of coaches to identify with, relate to, and connect with for their coaching journey ahead. We can take on board a lot of societal conditioning and sometimes even parental conditioning, friend conditioning, and other sorts of conditionings as well from all over the place. We're so heavily influenced in life, helping us or making us believe or think in some way that we wouldn't be good at something because of a particular way that we are or how we communicate or show up in the world. And I hear this from introverted folks a lot. And so I hope that this interview with Katherine, who clearly identifies as an introvert herself and works exclusively with introverts, specifically introverted business owners and coaches, that you are about to learn and see exactly what it is that I just said, and that is that introverted people have incredible skills, abilities, and qualities that make amazing coaches, and that nothing about being an introvert is something that should hold you back from following your dream to become a coach, should you want to. So enjoy this interview with Katherine. She is truly amazing, and we are so honored by her integrity, her authenticity, her sensitivity, her grace in everything that she does. And this is just some of the reasons why she is our joint winner of the Beautiful You Coaching Academy International Coach of the Year for 2022-2023. Hello, Katherine Mackenzie-Smith. It is such a joy to have you on Inspired Coach. Welcome.
Hi, Julie Parker. Thank you so much for having me. Always an honour, and I love any time that we get to spend together.
Well, the feeling there is mutual. And Katherine, I just want to begin today by saying an enormous congratulations to you for being announced as our International Coach of the Year for the Beautiful You Coaching Academy for 2022-2023. You are so deserving of that honour. How's it feeling for you?
Still a little bit like I can't believe it. Thank you so much. It's such an honour, and Beautiful You has been such a huge part of my life for nearly 10 years, as we were just talking about. And it truly is such a full circle moment from that time many, many moons ago when I sat in front of you on Zoom and said, what do I have to do to be in this course?
I remember that time like it was yesterday, even though it wasn't yesterday. And it has literally nearly been 10 years. And to see the trajectory of your growth and your business has, honestly, it has been a joy for me to witness that. And I always just feel, truth be told, Katherine, so comforted when I see you and the work that you do out in the world, which is what's going to make up the bulk of our conversation today, working as an introverted coach and someone who so deeply identifies as an introvert yourself, and also supporting other business owners and a lot of coaches I know who identify in that same way, because it just feels as though in many ways you help to balance the scales out of what can feel like a very noisy, extroverted industry at times. Do you genuinely feel that way too?
Not at all. So thank you so much for saying that. I hold no... that is very, very kind of you to say that. But I do think that sometimes there are ways of maybe our belief systems or social expectations or conditioning that does maybe make us think that it's not something that that introverts might be drawn to, or even business in general being something that introverts can do and be successful at. But thank you so much for saying that. It's very kind.
Oh, well, it's very true, you know, and I think in this podcast we want to have very real, genuine conversations with people at varying different stages of their coaching journey. And you have now been a coach for nearly a decade, but you came to it from a very different industry, and I know struggled a little bit in the beginning about thinking about, well, what should my niche be and where should I go before you really landed in this space. And so I'd love to just take you back a little bit if we can. As someone I know that has always identified as an introvert, did you have questions and doubts within yourself when you first started down this path of maybe it wasn't for you because of that?
I have a huge amount of audacity, so I don't know. I was sort of brought up with the belief that if I set my mind to anything, I could make it happen. And so whilst on the surface level, having that belief system instilled in me from a young age, despite all of the other things that happen to us in our lives, there was always a spark of knowing that if this was something I really wanted, I could make it happen. And yes, also that equal side of maybe it's not, maybe I do have to be a certain way. And to be honest, even this far down the track, I still have days like that where I ask myself those questions. And I think what what we're constantly doing as just humans in the world is finding our place within where we fit, and also needing to maybe learn that what we're seeing externally, what we're seeing amongst all of the noise on social media, in our peer groups, in our industry, isn't always the reality of it and the truth of it. And so I think it's, a little bit, a little bit of that, and a little bit of learning to be okay with being on our own journey, and understanding that might look different from the journeys that other people are on, and knowing that being an introvert doesn't mean that there's a deficit there. It's just that we need to find a way to manage it so that we take care of ourselves. And the difficulty that I probably had early on was trying to, like I had in my television career, trying to put myself into a box that I thought I needed to fit into, and doing that in a way that became so exhausting and overwhelming and unsustainable for me to maintain, because I sort of got started really quickly before we had even finished the pilot round working with clients, which was wild to me that was even happening. And that momentum built so beautifully over the first couple of years, and then quickly became apparent to me that if I didn't manage my energy and understand how that needed to look in my business, that it wasn't going to be sustainable and I was going to burn out, which I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Katherine, thank you for being so honest and sharing that with us. And I want to come back to that, because if it's one thing that I really want everyone to know, and I think that this is not necessarily something that everyone does, is that you can burn out from doing something that you love.
Yes.
This is a very, very real thing. I think a lot of people associate burning out with you're doing something that you hate, and you're feeling resentful and horrible turning up for it every day. And while, yes, that can be a part of some people's journeys, it's not everyone's. And you 100% can burn out from doing something that you absolutely love. And sometimes that makes it even worse, because you can question yourself so deeply around, but I don't understand what is going on, and why I'm feeling this way. But what I wanted to pick up on first was something that you mentioned earlier about your audacity. And this is something that I'm learning about you today, which I absolutely love. I love that you never really seriously questioned yourself about whether you could make coaching and a coaching business and being a coach a success for yourself as an introverted person, because that's not the case for everyone. There are actually a lot of introverted people out there that I believe seriously question whether this is a legitimate thing that they could do because of the way that they identify. And as somebody that is now coaching those beautiful people, you must have seen that come forth in lots of ways. Would I be right in saying that?
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. And again, I think it comes back to the messaging that we've maybe received our whole lives. And, there's a lot of unpacking that comes with that as well, that we need to be more outgoing, that many of us, myself included, have received messages our whole life that we need to be seen a certain way, or that the way that we're showing up is not the way that people want us to. And as I get older, coming to understand that isn't just about being introverted, that's about so many other things, and the way that society expects us to be, and what we're told we should be doing versus what we actually need, and how we show up as our truest self. So yeah, I can't think, there probably was moments, but I definitely have many things that probably held me back. But thinking, I'm too introverted for this, was never something that crossed my mind. And I do appreciate that isn't everyone's reality. But I also always use people like Oprah, Brené Brown, who else do I use as amazing examples? Those two are two pretty good examples of how can I use that as an excuse when there are incredible people in the world doing that who identify as introverts. And yeah, that being an example of people to look to. President Obama running the USA. You know, there's so many people out there, 50% of the population who identify as introverts, and if the extroverts, or the people who identify as more extroverted, were the only people that could be successful in some way or another, I think we'd be missing a lot in the world, and there would be a lot of people who we look up to maybe now and learn from and follow, and who are running incredible businesses in the world that wouldn't exist if that was true.
That is so true, and you are 100% correct. You know, I am not someone, as you know, that identifies as an introvert. As I've gotten older, I think I've come more to the middle of being a bit ambivert. I think that's also been heavily influenced by the fact that I fell in love with and married a very introverted, highly sensitive man. And over the years, he has introduced me to the joys of staying home and being quiet. And I have learned to feel into that a lot and actually come to love it a lot more than I once used to. But you are so right, because truly introverted people and introverted space holders, introverted coaches, and I am seeing so many faces pop in front of me. Amanda Rootsey, Laura Banks, Jade Mackenzie, you know, so many in this community of Beautiful You and beyond who are extraordinary at what they do. And so I'd love to ask you, Katherine, what do you think are some of the great skills of introverted coaches that maybe people don't necessarily understand or value as much as they possibly could?
I want to be really careful to not make huge generalizations or in any way indicate that being more extroverted means that you can't hold these traits or present or show up with the characteristics that are often associated with being introverted. I'm personally not a fan of binary anything, and so when I say this is what the science and the research has identified as strengths that come with being a more introverted person. But obviously we all have the capacity to hold both. More introverted people can go out and do things that are maybe assigned as more extroverted traits and characteristics and strengths, the way that more extroverted people do enjoy quiet time and having that time to themselves, and are great listeners and incredible coaches. And so I want to be really careful to say that, because I don't like generalizations, and I would never want to pretend that some of the things that I'm going to talk about are in any way something that would be lacking in someone who identifies as more extroverted. So that feels like a massive caveat, but a really important one.
A very important one, and thank you for saying it, because the fact is that we so often get very labelled in our thinking, and it's like, I know that you're aware that one of the core skills and qualities that we talk about in training people to become a Beautiful You coach is about enthusiasm and encouragement. And I happen to know, just from the response of the thousands of people that we've trained, that many people make the assumption that being enthusiastic and encouraging of people really live in the extroverted zone. It's like, no. No, they can live across a very broad spectrum, depending upon how you want to interpret them and show up. So I think that's a great caveat before you go on. So tell us a little bit, tell us about the research, tell us about more. I love it.
Yeah, so well, I just want to add in there as well that any of my clients who know me, have worked with me, anyone who's been on any kind of call with me knows that when I get excited and passionate about the work that they're doing and the energy of the possibilities of what they're creating or we're creating together, that I definitely don't fall. Like, people would look at me and go, you don't seem like an introvert at all. And that just further proves my point that maybe we don't truly understand what it always means, and the fact that we go against type all the time. And so like I said, introverts are about 50% of the population, and all this really means is that we get our energy from time spent alone. That is the core basis of all of the research, all of the data. And extroverts tend to get their energy from time spent with other people, and that's really what it is. There's not But what that does is that presents certain traits and things and ways that we maybe show up differently in the world. And that also means that we have, depending on where on that spectrum we sit, if you're more ambivert, then you more likely are going to have a much nicer balance of how much time you like to be around other people and how much time you like to spend alone. That's a really lovely balanced place to be, and we're probably all trying to find that within ourselves. But really it's about understanding what is it that I actually need in my day to be able to show up and do the things that I need to do. For coaches, that is doing things like showing up for our clients. If we do public speaking, it's showing up and doing the things we need to do that may be seen as more extroverted activities, and then factoring in how much downtime we need to be able to come back to that homeostasis, that balanced place of feeling energized and good again. I have totally forgotten the question that you asked me.
That's completely okay.
Oh, what it takes to be a good coach. I'm back on track.
Just the skills and qualities of an introverted coach.
Yes.
You know, some of those wonderful things that sometimes people maybe they even have them themselves but aren't recognizing as being really wonderful, and or that possibly more extroverted people don't necessarily understand.
Yes, thank you. My little neurodivergent brain goes off track a little bit sometimes. I like to be reined in. So the biggest one that's probably the most well known is that introverts are known as deep thinkers and excellent listeners. And so in my opinion, as an introvert, so I'm slightly biased, those are two skills that are incredibly important as coaches. And I know that you would agree because I'm pretty sure that that is in the Beautiful You training, if I can cast my mind back far enough. That
It
being
sure
able,
is.
right? Space holding in any capacity requires more of us to take a step back and listen and hold space and observe and listen to what's not being said, like actually take a step back and pay attention. And again, I'm sure that I definitely learnt this from you. Instead of thinking about what am I going to say next, being able to actually be with all of that. Now that can also trip us up a little bit because we need to process internally, and so sometimes that can be, okay, what is my next question going to be, and trying to work that out in our minds when we need to be actually in that listening space. And so, like anything, skills that need to be refined, and yet our ability to be in that space, to allow space within a session, I think can be something that would be maybe something that more extroverted people might need to cultivate within themselves when they're so used to talking and thinking externally. Being able to be in that space and that quiet contemplation within a session can be, in my experience, where the most magical things happen. And if we actually take a moment, if we take a moment to actually create silence, that's when the real magic happens and things can come through. So in a coaching capacity, I think those are two of the most important traits that many introverts just have quite naturally. And that comes from not necessarily being an introvert, but that is something that we have the capacity to do quite naturally.
And that's a really wonderful thing, because coaching is a skill and it's something that people can be taught, but at the same time, let's make no mistake about it, it is inherently enhanced by the nature of the person who is the coach. And however it is that they may identify, not just as an introvert or an ambivert or an extrovert, but in so many different ways. Someone's values influences their ability to hold space for someone, their beliefs, there's so many different things here that make up the human being that is the space holder in so many different ways. Katherine, I want to circle back because I know that this is a very important part of your journey. You mentioned before that when your business started, and I was there and I was witnessing it, it began with a bang. You had clients before you even finished your training. You were very successful. It started very clear. You came into it never having coached anyone before. It was like, wow, stratospheric, boom. And then what happened? and the whole thing that you were talking about before about managing your energy and burning out and things like that, because this is a part of being an introvert and a coach at the same time. And it's my understanding you having to, in a way, even though I know it wasn't very pleasant at the time, but going through that lived experience as a teacher for yourself to now be out the other side of it, having such a richer, deeper understanding of your own energy and your own self and needs, and now being back thriving and, you know, in so many different ways again in your coaching business.
Oh, this is such a big conversation, and one that I was lucky to share at an Inspiration Day a few years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago now, nearly. The deeper, and to touch on something that you said as well just before about the lived experiences and the different parts of who we are contributing to the way that we show up as space holders and coaches. And I believe that so deeply with every fiber of my being. And as a result of that, I have come to, and this may not be resonant with everyone, but this is what has been a part of my personal journey, is that we don't just decide to become a coach and start a business. And I definitely would have initially, to get out of the career that we're in, or to make money, or to support our families. Obviously, we generally will start down a path like this for that reason. But what it quickly became really apparent to me was that there's a deeper soul purpose behind the reason why showing up and supporting people and holding space for people comes in the container of this business, where we are the heart and soul of it, and our lived experience really does make up the foundation of that, and is such a deep core part of that. Because I used to get so frustrated, because I would say to people, well, why did you decide to become a coach? And they always would say to me, oh, I just want to be of service. I just want to help people. And there are so many career paths that we could go down to that result in doing that thing. And so what I have come to understand in my own journey is that we're called to something deeper, and such a big part of our business journey in this format, I think especially, is a big part of our own healing journey and our own personal transformation and development. And I know you and I have had this conversation so many times that Beautiful You does result in people starting very successful coaching businesses, but for many people it's as much a personal development program as it is a coaching school. And I genuinely think that. So when I got to that, I kind of did the things. I followed the plan that had always been my belief about the world, as maybe someone who was more quiet, a bit quirky, that I had to decide I wanted something and go for it, because that was just what my experience had always been. And I did all the things that I was supposed to do. I launched a course that, you know, was my first kind of big income month. I, did, back in the days, it's so long ago now for people, I wrote an ebook, I had my coaching clients, and I was doing all the things to keep up with that. I was doing different courses and learning different skills. And I got to this point where I just was so tired and was starting to resent the people who were coming into my space, because I felt like I was giving so much of myself to them. I was literally getting to the end of the day being as exhausted as I would on a 12-hour shoot when I worked in TV, and feeling that same familiar feeling of how I felt at school, how I felt in my career. I was just repeating the pattern of, this is what it should look like, you do these things and that will result in this. And it was like choosing to go down the journey of starting my own business was the universe's way of saying, we're not doing this anymore, because it didn't really work the last few times. So here's a massive healing journey for you to embark on, because you kind of chose it. You stepped into it. You decided that's what you wanted. And so, yeah, I my partner was starting his own business. We were moving back interstate so that he could start a gym, and that we both knew was going to require a lot from us to start a bricks and mortar business. We ended up with 3 in the first 12 to 18 months, 3 different businesses. And I sort of said, okay, well, I'm feeling burnt out anyway. Maybe this is just a chance for me to take a step back and reevaluate things. And as what normally happens when we have declared something to the universe and then freaked out and run away from it, it comes tapping. It comes tapping on your door until you can't ignore it anymore. And so a year after deciding to step way back from my business, I started learning about energy and soul healing, and so much for my own journey, but because I knew that I still wanted to work with introverted and highly sensitive people. And so not only did I need to heal the parts of myself that were still buying into old systems and belief mindset systems, but also to be able to hold that space for my people as well. And as a result of that, I feel like every time we go on a new iteration of our own healing and personal transformation, we deepen our capacity to hold that for our clients as well. So that's a huge answer, and it's not even the full answer, but hopefully that kind of explains in some capacity what it felt like. And it was really an understanding of, this is not going to be able to continue on like this. If you're going to keep trying to put yourself into a box that you think you should in order to be successful, it's always going to feel like this. What are you going to do to try something different? And now what I try to do is just keep coming back to that truth, because we still get distracted and we still see the shiny messages that other amazing people out there are doing. And it's actually just about constantly coming back to that internal guidance system and knowing within myself what is right for me and what I've tried and what's, yes, maybe got a bit of my interest, but why? Instead of constantly just allowing myself to be pulled in so many different directions.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Katherine. I think, these are the kinds of stories that I just love to be amplified, for other people to hear, and for everyone to understand that it is not necessarily always the straight linear trajectory that possibly some marketing might have us believe. It's like, do this, follow this formula, and you'll go from here to here in a straight line up and everything will just be perfect. Just do this, It does not necessarily work like that. And in fact, I don't know anybody that it's worked like for it, which blows my mind a little bit that messaging is therefore still out there. But it's also in many ways a wonderfully teaching / cautionary tale about not listening to yourself, or coming to that conclusion of needing to understand things are not really working for me anymore, or if they ever really did, and I need to make changes here. And I'm so glad that you did, and I'm so glad that you've circled back around to now be coaching and working with so many wonderful people in the space that you do. Katherine, I'd love to ask you, because as you've mentioned yourself, with 50% of the population identifying as an introvert, there will be a lot of introverted people that are listening to this podcast right now and either contemplating becoming a coach, or in a stage of feeling into their own energy and their own introverted powers and skills and talents and beliefs and abilities and values as well. I'd love to know from you if you could just share a message or, a supportive Katherine wonderful thing to say, or things, if you would like, that if someone is out there, thinking about this as a potential pathway for themselves as a coach, but are maybe having thoughts of, but I'm too introverted, or I'm too reserved, or I don't know whether, I could really be outgoing enough, to do this, which I know sometimes is the narrative that happens. what would you say to them as somebody that is now just so beautifully successful in your own soulful way as an introvert and just doing so many beautiful things as a coach?
Thank you so much. I want to say everything. I want to say all the things. Don't
go.
Learn
say
from
all
my
the things. Say all the things. Just
learn from my mistakes. No. I mean, I do always try and show up in my spaces in that place of just realness, because I think, like you said, there's a lot of messaging out there that obviously distills journeys into a linear process, because as humans, that's kind of how we've come to understand the world. But I think that there's just so much more to it than that. And I think it can be easy to forget that when you're deep in it in your own journey and you're looking at the way other people are talking about their journey, and it just looks like, oh, they've just got it so easy. They're obviously the person who has all the answers for me. And in my experience, the only person that has all the answers for you is you. And anything that you can do if you're thinking about becoming a coach, or you are a coach who identifies as being more introverted and thinks that your magic and the way that you show up and hold space for your clients, the way that you run your business, the way that you market yourself, because let's not forget that being a coach and running a business are two completely different things. They are all the things that your people are looking for. And so when you think no one's ever going to want to work with me because I'm too quiet or I'm too shy, and which is different from being an introvert but can sometimes be associated with it, or I take too long, that's a big one that comes up so often in my community. Oh, everything takes me too long, I'm so behind. And that measuring stick is not real when you're on this journey to your purpose. It's not something that we can just say, oh, I'm going to do this, and then it happens overnight. This is a commitment to a lifelong journey that we're on ourselves. The business is a container that we are kind of catching some of that magic and purpose in, that we can then distill and share with other people who might be on a similar journey or looking for guidance from someone who will understand that. But who you are is the magic. And when we try to be who we're not, when we try to be more extroverted or more professional or look a certain way, or, you know, teach a certain method that we think is going to have a good marketing hook that's going to attract people to us, what we can do is we find ourselves actually attracting all the wrong people. And when we show up as genuinely ourselves and we do the things that feel right for us, even if it's not necessarily what the trend is right now or the best marketing tactics to make the most amount of money, what we do is we invite people who resonate with us and our mission and vision. We actually invite them to come into our world. And I can tell you from experience that means more than anything else. It means more than 1 million followers. It means more than a 6-figure business. It means more than how it looks on the outside when you get to show up in community with people who are so in alignment with your values and the things that you care about, the mission that you're on, and that you know that you can show up and hold space for them to have a much deeper and more rich journey while they're in your space. I mean, I kind of feel like everyone can maybe take something away from that, because if you are more extroverted and you think, oh, I'm too much, because I know that story can be there as well. You are never too much for your people. You are never not enough or too quiet for your people. But what happens is when we disconnect from who we really are and we try to be something we're not, we try to put ourselves into boxes that don't fit us, we create a disconnect between the people that we're really here for and the work that we're doing and what we think we should be doing.
Absolutely we do. And there is no doubt, Katherine, that there is just so many beautiful, soulful, extraordinary messages in there for everyone, no matter how they identify. And can I also just add in there as well that turning up in life, let alone in business, where there are things connected to it such as money and revenue and profit and loss and things like that, exhausting.
Yes.
If you're not yourself. One-way ticket to just being completely exhausted.
Yeah.
The masks, the feelings of, pushing, of, oh gosh, that's a whole other topic and podcast interview, altogether. But yes, to just feel into the power and space and grace of showing up as you and knowing how incredibly attractive that is, because it truly, truly is. Katherine, thank you so much for being with us today. I mentioned at the start of this interview that I find it so comforting that you are out there coaching in the world as somebody that is just so integrous and so steeped in your own self-belief of who you are and how you are genuinely working to help other people embrace that as part of themselves as well, is so wonderful, because the work that we do on ourselves as space holders is incredibly important. And in fact, it's vital for everything that we do in this space. And so just thank you so much for being a shining light, not just for introverted people and coaches in this industry, but indeed just being such a shining light in the coaching industry. Full stop.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being such a huge, huge part of that journey that I've been on, and always a cheerleader of what I have done and supporter of that. It has made the tumultuous journey so much easier to navigate, knowing that you're always there.
Thank you. And everyone, thank you so much for listening in to this interview today. If you identify as an introvert, then I know that you will have just resonated so deeply with Katherine and her heartfelt words and journey. And if you identify as an ambivert or an extrovert, I know that you will have gotten so much out of this interview today as well, because of Katherine and who she is and the wonderfully successful and extraordinary business that she has created. I think if there is one really core message that comes through from today, from Katherine, from her work and from this conversation, it's be you. Do you. Show up in the world, and as a coach and a coaching trainee, wherever you may be on your journey, wholly and solely owning who you are and knowing that you are enough. Thank you for being with us for this episode of Inspired Coach. We hope you join us for the next one.